It's good to have all you here with us today. It's good to have all you here with us over the internet as well for our Sunday lectures. Today, I'm going to have our friend Raphael bring us a lecture about truth, science, and spiritism, which I think it's a very up-to-date subject for us to talk. And especially in the days where we think there's contradiction there's no space for spiritism and science together, right? And so it's always good. But before we start, as always, we're going to have our friend Raquel reading from a small passage for us and doing our initial prayer.
Good morning. So I'm going to read a passage from the book Happy Life from Divaldo Franco. Radiate the cherry of your faith through your smile, your words, and your attitude towards life. The words need light to overcome the predominating shadow. Extend your confidence and enlightened presence, helping the fearful and discouraged, those who have fallen and the revolted. The light always attracts the enriched with beauty. Do not let the star go out because there are dissolving factors and aggressions around. Let your faith shine and point the way for those who yearns for the opportunity of self-realization. So let's now continue connected with this beautiful energy that surrounds us. Thank God for the opportunity of being here together one more time to learn a little bit more of His teachings, to become better humans, better spirits. Let's ask Him to enlighten our friend Raphael so that he may be able to bring all that he learned through his studies for this lecture and open our minds and our hearts so we may absorb as much as possible. Thank you, so be it.
Hey guys. So there's a lot of things to talk about, and I'll try to summarize as much as possible of this topic that is not a very simple one, but is a very necessary one. And I'm going to start by just saying or expressing my gratitude once again for being here and mentioning the fact that this moment for me is extremely important for my own understanding of what life is. I don't want to sound confusing. I'm just trying to express my feelings and gratitude for this is small space that we have here, but it's so important for all of us. A place where we come to seek consolation, where we seek truth, knowledge, and the necessary instruments and tools to make us stronger. So this is much more than just a unit at Bayville or this address or in this city. It's a beacon of light that we all seek, and we all come here for that purpose of clarification. And we do that through this body of knowledge, this doctrine that we call Spiritism. And we learn early on when we start studying Spiritism that we have three aspects: science, philosophy, and religion. We divide them in three aspects because currently that's how we learn how to probe reality, It's all part of the same thing, but we divide in our minds because it's a pedagogical way of trying to understand what we see, what we experiment, what we feel, and how do we connect with creation, with this feeling that what we see with this body, it's not enough. It's not enough to explain the reality that we experience. So, independent of what aspect of the doctrine we are studying, the main goal is always consolation. So when Jesus spoke about the promised consoler, he used the term consoler because it's the most important thing for us to in the moment that we're going through in this incarnation. It's consolation. And this means easiness of pain. Our pain is a little bit smaller, or it doesn't mean just physical pain, but the uncomfortable feeling that there's something else in this life and we need to find it. So but it creates kind of a pain inside. Like, I need to find a meaning for my life, a meaning for what I do every day, a meaning for the body that I have right now. So, independent of all these aspects, consolation is paramount. It's the most important thing always. And whoever comes here in front of you and speak about the doctrine, that must be the main goal. And today I would like to bring a little bit more of the philosophical aspect of the doctrine. This means that I'm going to bring some questioning that I believe is important for us to build or rebuild our own faith. And when I talk about consolation, it starts before the lecture. It's not just a lecture. It starts when we come here and we greet each other and we have this contact. So we are beings that were created to be together. And when we come here and we greet each other and we talk, sometimes we even forget that this is why we are here, that we have some duties to do, because it's good. It feels good for us to have this contact. The second moment is the lecture itself. And the lecture is much more than what we see, because whoever comes with the intention to bring clarification, it's strongly inspired. Who among us can come here and talk about the meaning of life by themselves? We can't. It's too much. And this is one of the first things that we learn when we volunteer to be a speaker. It comes with the feel nervous that how am I going to deliver a topic like that? How am I going to talk like that with all the doubts that I have? You're not alone. You do everything you can. You study. That's a very important part. We always have to be studying because we need to have the fuel. But when we come here, we receive inspiration. It feels like the mentors, they organize the thoughts in our mind so that it comes out in an intelligible way. If we didn't have that, maybe we wouldn't be able to put the topic so clearly. And that's something very important that Divaldo spoke in one of his lectures. You know that Divaldo, he had a very strong mediumship. And he could see and speak with the spirits as I'm speaking to you now. So there was one situation where he had to give a lecture presentation, and he didn't study. So he was relying on the spirit of Manuel Filomeno de Miranda that would come and just tell him what to say. And then when it got to that moment, with a huge amount of people, as always happens with Givaldo, and he went to the podium, and Manuel Filomeno de Miranda was just there. Okay, now you talk. No, but you're not going to help me. You didn't even study. So what do you want me to do? So I'm not going to give the lecture for you. I can help you. But if you don't do your part, what can I do? And he didn't have what to say. So he said that he had to sit down because he didn't do his part. So this is a very important part of being a speaker, is to understand that we have to maintain our study and our questioning. So on that topic, I want to link with the subject of today's lecture, which is truth. Truth, science, and spiritism, in that order. As we live our lives as if we knew what the truth is. Sometimes we behave as if we had the truth in our response to another person's opinion. We react as if we knew for sure that that person is right or wrong. Meaning that we don't actually understand the fragility of our own truth. But this type of questioning, it's not new. It's something that we have been doing for at least 25 centuries. I'm dating from the classical books. So yesterday, when I was thinking about that, and I was walking my dogs, and it was a nice day, so it's very hot. It's too hot for me. But yesterday, around maybe 6 p.m., it was not too hot, so I was walking my dogs, and there were trees and sounds, smells, and those that yellow flower, that weed. Dandelion. Yeah, dandelion. But I like when they explode and everything becomes yellow. So then I was observing all that, and I realized that what my dogs were experiencing was not the same thing. They were experiencing something else. Because the strongest sense that we have is our vision. So I was seeing everything. I was barely hearing or smelling, but I was seeing. And for them, the truth and the reality that they were seeing is much more related to their noses, to the smell. So they were seeing in their mind dogs that had passed, other animals that had passed and were no longer there. The color that they were seeing is not the same that I was seeing. It seems very trivial, but I'm getting somewhere. We can say the colors that we see are real, okay. But what is the color of ultraviolet? It's not violet. We call ultraviolet because the frequency is above violet. Or what is the color of infrared? We can't see it. There's no color. We cannot even imagine because it's not part of the reality that we create in our minds. So we can do the same exercise with everything that we see and touch here. It's a product of our brains. It's a form of experiencing reality. I start imagining if I had a different body, if my body did not interact as strongly with matter as this one. It's like when you're driving and there's fog, you don't stop your car, you continue because you know you can go through the fog. You know the fog is there. You reduce your speed, but you can go through because the matter of your car and your matter barely interact with the molecules of the fog. So you can see through. So imagine if we had a body that would see this wall here as a fog. It would be a completely different truth. And then you can say, well, why would I think on all these things? Because this reality, this truth, that at that moment that I was walking my dogs, I was creating all that only in my mind. In my mind. The truth and the reality we create only in our minds. This is this differentiation between the intelligible and the visible world. It's something that has been brought to us, as I said, for 25 centuries ago. In the Spirit's book, we have two philosophers that they signed the introduction of the Spirit's book. Do you guys remember who they are? And they are mentioned again in the introduction of the Gospel according to Spiritism. And Socrates, exactly. So they signed their names there because something that they brought to us is important for us to develop. And in the book, On the Way to the Light, Emmanuel tells us that what Plato brought to us, it's an imperfect view of the teachings of Socrates, because Socrates never wrote anything. Plato wrote. But we can still learn a lot from what he brings to us. And then I went back and I studied the book, The Republic. It was a book that was written 400 before Christ. And in this book, there's a discussion. And it starts with the discussion, what is just and what is unjust? What is better to be? Is it better to be good or is it better to be corrupt? And the people that were with Socrates at that moment, they were saying that it's better to be corrupt. Why? Because you get more money, so you get more advantages in your life. So life is easier. Life of the visible world, what you experience with your senses. And Socrates was saying, no, the happiness comes from doing good, for being just. And then they go in this exercise where Socrates is bringing all these concepts to prove that being just is better. And in order to do that, it's something so difficult that he had to create, before talking about what is just for a person, he wanted to prove what is just for a city, for a civilization. And then he created the idea of civilization. And the exercises that he goes through, it's still studied today. So if you go and you study law, you have to read The Republic, because it talks about constitution, laws, but anyway, what I want to bring is that he puts forth a table of truth. So knowledge or episteme and opinion, doxa. He separates. So this is something we still don't do it today. The difference between knowledge and opinion. Knowledge is based on the intellect, the intelligible, and mathematical reason. So at that time, they didn't call science science; they called natural philosophy. But reason and the truth that you build in your mind is part of the intelligible world. And opinion or illusions and beliefs are something completely different. And he separate that, saying that in order to say that the city that he had created had to be governed by philosophers. Philosophers are the ones who are only worried about the knowledge, not the opinions. And this meant that the civilization has to be governed by those who seek the truth beyond their own beliefs and experiences based on the physical body. So when I talk about this, I understand that it might be a little uncomfortable because it's not something that we hear it every day. And this discomfort, it comes from the fact that every time we learn something or we question, our brain, it has to create a new neural pathway. And when it goes about this process, it spends energy. And our body, it fights against spending energy. So it creates that little discomfort. But if you maintain that line of thought, if you maintain your thinking, then it gets easier, because then the pathway is formed and gets easier and easier and easier. So then I understand that sometimes it's uncomfortable. So I remember when I was doing philosophy classes, which was mandatory for engineering, and some of them were completely uncomfortable. The reading was difficult. I had to read several times, but eventually it gets easier. But then you can ask me, why would I do that? Why would I question things like that? In chapter 2 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is a subtitle there that says point of view. Point of view. And the Spirit tells us that it's extremely important for us to develop our concepts beyond our physical life. Our knowledge of the future life, what we call now the spiritual life, it creates a moralization. He uses the term moralization effect on us. Knowledge, questioning, education, clarification, it helps us to improve ourselves morally. It gives us the possibility to be better humans. I'll give an example. If I know that we reincarnate, that we get to the point from our questioning of reality, and we find that the model that answers our questions is based on reincarnation. And we study the facts. And then we know, okay, now you have a knowledge. Reincarnation is real. Does it make sense to consider color of skin as an intellectual ability? So it doesn't make sense for someone to say, hey, depending on the color of your skin, so today we call races, but they are not races. We have only one race, the human race. But okay, different races. We consider as with different abilities. If you are from this race or that race, you can do this or you can do that. It makes no sense. So this means that this created a moralization effect. You know better now. So you're not going to disrespect people that have a skin color different than yours because it makes no sense for you anymore. So you are a little better. Another thing, if through our questioning we get to another piece of truth, that as spirits, we reincarnate in different genders so that we understand how to use our sexual energy for creation and improvement. And we go through, it's not something binary, it's either this or that. You can go through a whole graduation between the two genders. Does it make sense to question another person's sexual orientation? Even more importantly, is it even our business? So, this is another example of how building our faith in questioning and looking for facts, it makes us better. So this process that I mentioned from Plato and Socrates, it didn't end there. It continued evolving. Socrates put forth the theory of the forms or theory of ideas. It is from Greek, so it depends on the translator, in which everything that we see is just a reflection of a real world. So there's a real world out there, and we can only access that real world with our minds, and we create reflections in visual reality. I'll explain. If you build a house, okay, so let's say, okay, there's a rectangle here. That's a geometric shape that was described in the Elements of Geometry from Euclid, which is 100 years after Socrates. So that's a rectangle, and there's a reason why we chose a rectangle. It has its properties, but the rectangle itself and the angles exist only in our mind. We build as a projection what we already know it's truth. It's in our mind. So the truth and the reality, it's in our mind. And then it comes the question, if we have an intelligible reality that is way beyond what we experience with our physical body, when the physical body dies, where does the intellectual reality go? If it's beyond, why would it die with the body? It doesn't. It continues. The intelligible world, it doesn't die with the body. It's completely different. It's separated. We can continue accessing reality by sitting down, closing our eyes. But we can, through meditation, we can try to disconnect from our own bodies. But that continues through our thinking process. And then it comes another philosopher 20 centuries later called Descartes. And he continued that questioning about reality. He went a little bit further. He created the method of doubt, which is in his book Meditations. And he started questioning everything he believes in. Everything, and see where is the base for this belief? How did I create my own truth? And then he starts seeing, I was raised in a particular way, I was raised in a particular community. So that particular thing that I thought it was absolute truth is nothing more than the way that I was raised. And this particular piece of information, it provides us with humbleness and respect. When we see someone that comes from the East, let's say from India, and that person, it has a different set of beliefs, and we think that it makes no sense to me. Okay, but if you apply this Cartesian method, you'll see that some of your beliefs, in the same way that that person, it comes from where you were raised. And by doing this questioning, you can actually make your faith stronger because you understand yourself better. And then Descartes continued his studies, and he put forth the method, which is something that is very close to the scientific method that we have today, which means that you probe reality. So you want to see if something is real, you develop a way to measure it, and then you make a statement. If I measure it in this way, this happens. That is not related to opinion. It's completely separate from opinion. It doesn't matter. It's a fact. It's the whole truth? No, it's just that little thing. If I do this and I measure it in this way, using this method, that's the result I'm going to get. So it's very pragmatic. And this has been the best method that we created as civilization to probe reality, because it goes beyond our five senses. It goes beyond our body. We can say, okay, but that depends the way you measure it. So it doesn't mean that it is the true reality. Of course not. That's why it's a method that is always growing, always growing. And when we get, so Descartes was 17th century. So we move forward to the 19th century. 19th century. This whole methodology that started all the way back with Socrates, it finds itself finally matured. We are already applying this. And we are reading ourselves from the illusions built over the medieval era on all the, so we find ourselves understanding a little bit more what is reality and what is just beliefs. And then we read a book written in the 19th century, The Gospel According to Spiritism. Chapter 1, subtitle, Christ. When the Spirit tells us that the promised consoler, or the true understanding of the Jesus teachings, had to wait until we mature this process of seeking truth. We had to wait for the scientific method. It's here. It's in Gospel According to Spiritism. You can read. They had to wait for science to develop for Spiritism to come about. And it's very easy to understand if you really see how the truth, the consolation that we are seeking today came about. We have a different character that comes in, that enters the scenario. Professor Rivale. So he had his bachelor's in science and linguistics. I don't know how you study that together, but at that time it was possible. And then he did a doctorate in medicine. So it seems that, okay, what do you want to do with your life? but to him it was important. So after he graduated, then he started teaching chemistry, physics, astronomy, and philosophy, and writing books about education, how to educate yourself. And he was a guy that was always connected to the Parisian society. That was in Paris. He had moved to Paris, a guy from Lyon. And he was very connected to the scientific society. So they were all there drinking coffee. And they actually, it was very important to sit down and drinking coffee. It's actual coffee. So then he becomes aware of this phenomena of the turning tables or these spirits that make things move. And then it comes the training of the scientific method of the probing reality beyond your own opinions and what you see. It's in your intelligible world. He did not deny it. He investigated. And when he went to investigate, he saw that there are many things that I can think about, many laws that could make that table move. But there's nothing that I know of that can explain the messages that are being passed on. The phenomenon itself, it doesn't matter. What matters is the message that is coming through. So that is something completely different. And then as a scientist, he starts investigating. And he tells us in this book what is Spiritism, what he felt with his own words. I'm going to read that as just a small part because I think it's very interesting. So, Professor Riveio, Allan Kardec, he says, I applied the experimental method to this new science, as I had always done before then. I never formulated preconceived theories. I observed closely, comparing and deducing the consequences. The mathematical deduction that Socrates had mentioned. I sought to go back to the causes and the effects through deduction, through the logical chain of facts, and did not accept an explanation as valid unless it could resolve all the difficulties of the issue. So if he would come up with a cause or an explanation for what he was seeing, that explanation had to answer all the questions, not just one or two. Unfortunately, that's what was done for many other scientists of the time, including Michael Faraday, that's one of my favorites, that developed the phenomena that it drives our electricity today. But he did not get rid of his own prejudices and biases. So that scientist did not apply the scientific method in studying the spiritual phenomena. And he continues, that is how I had always proceeded with my previous endeavors since I was 15 or 16 years old. From the very start, I grasped the gravity of the exploration I was going to undertake. I saw in this phenomena the key to the very obscure and controversial problem of humanity's past and future, the solution that I had thought for my entire life. In a word, a complete revolution in my ideas and beliefs. Hence, I had to act circumspectly and not lightly. I had to be positivistic and not idealistic to keep from allowing myself to become deluded. Positivistic. This means to probe reality. That it comes from the positivism, which is directly related to applying the scientific method. So this, it's what developed what we have here today. So it's, you have the facts, then you have reason, and then you have your beliefs. I can bring some examples because the whole purpose of this is for us to know what we believe. Facts. Existence of spirits. It's a fact. We have a mediumship group here and we experiment that. And it has been done many, many, many times before. Reincarnation. That's not something that only Spiritism experiments with. So we have experimental results from different parts of the world. So it's just a matter of researching. Unbiased. Existence of a semi-material body. That's also a fact because we can see. So there are accounts of materialization and physical phenomena. Chairs are moved, and at that time, especially with Swedenborg, you would be sitting on a table and the table would float to the ceiling. So what is that? It's magnetism. Magnetism on wood. So the amount of energy that it's a city, the magnet the size of a city to make something on a piece of wood. So it's not that easy. Those are facts. Deductive reason. Spiritual life. That's different. We know that the spirits exist. We know that there is reincarnation. And we know that the intelligible world that they form, that we form, it continues. So the spirits live somewhere. They have to live somewhere. They're still themselves. I will continue being myself. So I will live somewhere. So there is a spiritual life. So you see the difference? One is a fact that's proven. The other one, it's reason. Still in our minds. We building our truth in our minds. Immortality of the soul. So if there is a reincarnation and we know that they don't die, we don't die, so we can use the term immortal. Whatever it means in the future, whatever is going to mean in the future, we don't know, but we know it means for us now. We will not die, so we are immortal. That's reason. Evolution of spirits. We know that from their own account, they improve, they get better with time. And we know that we get better. So again, that's reason. And from evolution, then, okay, it's reasonable to understand that there are high order spirits. So that's how we build our faith. Facts, reason, and then we go a step further. Beliefs, spiritual cities. There's no fact saying that there are spiritual cities, but we know for sure that there are. Why? Because we build the knowledge. We build the knowledge. We started from the facts, then we go to reason, and we build on top of that reason. And when we say that there is a spiritual city, okay, there are spirits, there are immortality of the soul, reincarnation. So this means that there is a time where I am on the other side, whatever that side is. I am myself. And I have others that are also themselves. So they will be real. They will be together in somewhere in space. And wherever they are, it's a city. They will build a city. So that's how we build our own faith. Can you guys understand where I'm going with? So then, the attempt that I'm trying to do today is for us to question our own truth and to try to understand where our own faith comes from, so that we can, first of all, respect others that have a faith that is different than ours, because it's not always that our faith is 100% standing on a concrete base. There is a lot inside ourselves that is fragile. And we can strengthen by understanding ourselves and questioning. The codifier, Professor Riveio again, Allan Kardec, the guy who accepted to apply this method, this precise, positive method to develop the facts that we build on top today. That's why it's called the base. The base, we build on top of this. He said many times, if the scientific method that I use to build this base one day says that anything that we are saying or believing is wrong, we should drop it. We should drop it. He said that. But at the same time, he says in the same book, if you want to really understand, if you want to refute what we study, you have to study as well. You have to study as well. Because in the same way that if there is anything that proves that is wrong, we are going to drop it, the proof has to come from the same method. You have to apply the same method. You have to drop your opinions and study using the positive method, the scientific method. The same way, with an open mind. And what is it that we see that has been happening for the past, 180 years? When people do that, they join us. They become Spiritism. But in the same way, we see that part of our faith sometimes is not very solid. And that is the part that sometimes, again, it becomes mysticism. That's when you see Spiritist centers going in a tangent and start going in another direction and starting to affirm a particular truth that is not connected to the initial facts through reason. And that's why this questioning or this exercise that I'm bringing today is always important, so that we maintain our target, we maintain our sobriety, we maintain our questioning. Questioning is never wrong. What is useless is questioning that doesn't bring forth an effort to find the answer. If you're just questioning, okay, then it's very comfortable. And you're not doing anything to find the answer. Okay, then you can question everything. But it's useless. It's not going to make you a better person. And that brings us back to the consolation. So all this is to strengthen our faith and to make us understand that the reason that we find that the visual world is not enough is because it is not enough. It is true. It's not enough. Our reality is much bigger than that. It's much bigger than that. And it's much better than that. If we read Heaven and Hell, I mentioned this before, but it's very interesting, so I'll mention it again. With Kardec and his friends in the Parisian Spiritist Parisian Society, they had an agreement. Whoever dies first, whatever discarnate first, is going to accept being evocated right after to tell what is going on the other side. They had that. They had that. And since at that time there were older people, then they would die, and then sometimes one of them would pass away, and they would revoke that person like the second day. And the guy came, and it described what he was seeing. And the first thing is the colors. The colors. There's so many colors. There's so many other things. It's so different. So you guys have no idea. I'm free from matter. I'm free from all this prison that is our body. I can access reality in a completely different way. So that's why. So this is the part that it's a fact. It came. It came. It happened. It's an experienced fact, and we can experience our own facts if we participate Spiritism. Eventually it's going to happen. Eventually it's going to happen. It happened to me, it's going to happen to you. And you'll see. And this brings the moralization effect. It makes us better people, because then our knowledge, it expands, and then we see how small most of the problems that we create in our civilization are. How small, and how better could it be if we could all think on what is really true, and not as what just our opinions and beliefs. And we just learn to respect each other's knowledge and ignorance. Just respect. I like to watch lectures and videos from skeptics, people that I don't want to say they are against religion, but they are against mysticism. And they do much of what we also do as questioning. But one thing that I realize that makes the whole process completely useless, it's they do not respect each other. When they go for debates and they call themselves names and that they use aggressive words, if we sit down and debate, that's good for both parties. That's it. It's not bad. But when you forget that you yourself don't have the absolute truth, and you see the other person as inferior, and you use aggressive words, then the whole process becomes useless, completely useless. And if there's one thing that I can bring to this lecture, is to respect other people, respect their beliefs, respect their knowledges, and understand that we as well have our own weaknesses. Thank you, guys. Any question? Any comments? Yeah.
Yeah, from the internet level. Great lecture. In your opinion, what is the next step that science will make to unite science and spirituality?
So science, there is a particular purpose that they are following, which is the development of knowledge. And it has to be something useful for society. So right now, if they they don't see cities floating around the planet, they're not going to seek for it. They're not going to look and see if there's a city there. So what will happen eventually is that during the probing that science is doing, during the scientific method, both realities will merge when we are ready. When we are ready, there's a reason why it's so separate today, which is not it's not that separate. If you so there's a new field of study that is called quantum cosmology, that is started by Stephen Hawking and his students, and that now are continuing, which means they are studying the universe and where it came from. We mentioned Big Bang, but it's not that simple. There's an inflation period after it, and there's a whole questioning of how time comes from one side, how we follow the linear direction of time. Why is it like that? So there's a whole questioning around this, and of course, there's the continuing studying of matter and what really means, what matter really means. One day, the two will merge, as it has been happening. If you keep reading Spiritist books since the basic books from Kardec, and the way it keeps going forward, you see that there's more and more there are interconnections. They keep having interconnection. There has never been a discovery or a new thing that negated Spiritism in any way. So we're going to get there. We're going to get there. But it has to be slowly. Can you guys imagine the emotional impact of discovering that there is a whole new civilization in the ionosphere, or in the one of the layers of our atmosphere? Can you guys imagine how that would impact people? It's not easy. It's not easy. It has to be little by little. It takes time. We have to reach the maturity. If you read the books from quantum cosmology, and the questioning and the answers that they are finding, and the hypotheses that are put forward, it's troubling. It's troubling to think that there was no time. So when people think, what was before Big Bang? There was no time. There was no before. What does that mean? That messes with your head. Because we were evolved inside of a giant clock that we call the planetary system. So we see time as a linear thing, that is time, but it is not. It is not. So we are not ready yet. We are not. We have to grow a little bit. I can prophesize that that junction will happen when we start making useless wars. When we are past that part. When we are in a situation where we are all together trying to get better. Okay, now you're ready for a next step. Before that, it's not going to happen. Not while we are here talking about the meaning of truth. And we still have people killing each other for really no good reason. No good reason. Because I want another piece of land, or I believe on something different than you. So that, well, makes no sense. So until we are not free from this, I don't think we're going to go very far. Anything else?
And which connection would just to answer for Leona, I like when you said that if you said, like, say, if I don't believe in what you believe, right? And I decide, I'm going to prove you wrong, and I do like a positive scientific research to answer all the questions so I can show you that you're wrong. It's exactly what's going to make us merge. Because then I like when you said, and the truth is, if you do that, then you become a spiritist because you look, I tried to prove you wrong, and but I couldn't find anything that if I do like a scientific, read scientific, and not just go with my own opinions and I'm here to prove you wrong and that's it because you're preconceived concepts. And I think that's exactly because of that. I think that's why it is going to connect over time, right?
Yeah.
And we have already so many people who are not even religious trying to prove reincarnation. And they take stories from kids that 4, 5, 6 years old, town stories from previous lives, and they actually go to the cities, to the place where they said, and they find, oh yeah, it's true, this place even exists. Yeah, there's someone who lived in this house with this name, and it's like, so scientific proofs, like people who are not spiritists were nothing, and it's time to prove it. And so many other things now that so many scientific research doing about does the spirit exist anyways, right? And to start. So it is going in there, right? And I think that's exactly because what you said. The more you're gonna try to prove that it's wrong if you do an honest scientific research like Kardec did, there's no other way to do non-connection over time. And I like what you brought as well now in terms of when it's going to really happen. I agree with you. I think we're not ready in there yet. I think we're not even ready yet to find out life in other planets, to know there
Yes.
Yeah. Even less that there is a spiritual sin in the layer. I agree with you with that one.
Yeah, there is a researcher in the US. He's doing like more than 100 cases of reincarnation with kids. Yeah, I don't remember the name, but like he was seeing a lot of cases, and most of the cases, the kids still remember when it was something related to some violent death or something.
Yeah.
There's I believe it's Professor Ian Stevenson, University of Virginia, and he spent university in the faculty of psychiatry, and he spent 40 years with a huge. So his first victory was to get funding for that type of research from the government, and he did. And then he has a huge team, and they go everywhere. So there's a case, people write to him, and then, there's a case of a kid that remember past life. Okay, he goes there, and he investigates. If there's any doubt, they discard. And then he wrote a book called Children Who Remember Past Lives. So the first chapters are only from what he found, and then the later chapters are from what does that mean. And when you read what does that mean, it's okay, man. I've knew that all my life. It's all here. So it's the same thing. And there's so many examples, because in US, interesting enough, they get funding for this type of research. And there are many groups that are researching, and one way or another. I remember when I first got internet in the 90s, I started communicating with a group. I was still in Brazil. I was communicating with a group here in I forgot what city, but in US, and they sent me a journal of the spiritual body, and it was the perispirit, and they had found that through their experiments. So this was 99, maybe 99, 1999, and they sent that by mail to me. Maybe that was my third email ever. And they sent by normal mail, and I read that's what is in the Spirit's book. So things are converging. But while we are ready, they will still be in little spots here and there. They are not going to explode. They're going to be just like Christianism. Christianism that stayed for decades in just a little part of the world, and it's 270 years, no, sorry, 300 years later is when Christianism took over the Roman Empire. It took 300 years, and it started with Jesus himself. So it's what Emmanuel tells us. We plant the seed, but we don't harvest. We don't do the harvest. That's from God. We just plant the seed. The harvest will be later on. Maybe I don't know how many incarnations. But it's little by little. But when something is truth, it's truth everywhere. Everywhere. It's not here or there, it's everywhere.
One thing that I don't understand is like in France, the spirits were believing in reincarnation, and in the US, they believe in resurrection, right? But why is this difference? Why in France they were believing in reincarnation? Like, shouldn't they believe in the same?
No, because, well, yeah, so there's a cultural difference. So when Spiritism developed, it was in France. Then they went to Brazil. They moved to Brazil, and the next reincarnations, the people of France, that concept continued growing, but it exploded in Brazil. It was completely different, and not in the U.S.
But the thing is, at the same time they were having spiritual research in the France, but they also had the same spiritual research in the US, right?
Not with the same, not in the same level. Now it's okay. Whenever there is a research or a spiritist center, there's a guy speaking Portuguese in the middle. So it started in France, went to Brazil, and exploded to the rest of the world, and it's still accelerating, but it's still small. And in US it's different, and this is from the Protestantism, so that's which is they believe in some kind of concept about resurrection. So we can only talk about in general terms, but specific, it changes with, of course, with person to person.
I think also the difference is that the time in France. First of all, in France, to talk about spiritism, nobody even knows what it is.
Yeah.
I have family that's born and raised in France. I have no clue what spiritism is. Is that in France, we started with Kardec, which was a scientific mind. In States, we're way more experimentation, and yeah, some of them were connected with the Kardec, but in States, there's nobody in the States that made the work that Kardec did. And I think that's why in States we got way more from the mysticism, the psychic, more than in France. And what went to Brazil was the base from France that got the name. This was those difference. Yeah. And I just want to add that it's actually fantastic that the people that these days do the scientific research about reincarnations are not spiritism. And I hope it keeps like that. Because imagine if everybody was trying to prove scientifically, wait, that all spiritists, it's like, oh, you're not biased. Of course you're going to have to prove that. You already believe it in the base. So it's good that from people who are not spiritists, scientists, they're just curious. Okay, now you're saying this exactly what Kardec did. When he heard about it, didn't want to, at the beginning, didn't want to go. Their friends say, oh, there's this tape, and it's like, oh yeah, sure, yeah. And then eventually he couldn't. Like, I think this person, you are going to go there, start work. And then he goes, okay, I'll go and take a look. Let's see what it is, right? And I think that's good that we have now scientists that are looking, with nothing to do with spiritism. Just saying, there's something worth of investigating here.
Yeah.
Let's investigate. Because they're not biased. So it's good that.
I think you have a question?
Yeah. When I project ahead of time, just trying to fast forward, I think that with like any other religion that they share so much in common, there's a cultural element that is so intertwined with faith. And that Spiritism might not necessarily look the same way that it looks in South America, that would look in Europe versus North America, and even East Asia, right? So I can see different flavors evolving. Even if you look within Brazil, like, there are differences between what you see in Catholicism versus Banda and other groups, because the literature might not be accessible to everyone the same way. Like you see a very evolved and very sophisticated language more common in Catholicism than in other groups. They're probably out of reach. They're reading and just won't resonate. But when you translate that to in other cultures, when you think of Protestantism, it's a little more conservative than it would be
Yeah.
with other religions. So we see other.
There's one distinction that I like to point out. First, is that Spiritism itself, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, we know that Spiritism is not the absolute truth, and when the civilization grows, it's probably going to be something a mix. It's not going to be Spiritism the way we do it, and the way we see in Brazil. Most of us participate in Spiritist groups in Brazil and here. There is much more connected to social assistance because people are really in need. So there has to be food. So that there's the lecture happens after the food or something like that, or you invite people that sleep over in the shelter to participate in the lecture. So it's a little bit different, and you develop the topics sometimes for those people that are addicts that are coming to participate. In North America is a little bit different. You have a huge government infrastructure. What people lack is more towards the intellect. It's the questioning is the faith itself. And but there's the distinction that I wanted to make is that even though in Brazil they use the term Spiritism for Umbanda and others, it's Spiritism is the name. It was developed for this process, this body of knowledge that Kardec developed. So Umbanda is it's and Nação and the others. It's something that is it happened earlier, much earlier. So those are not. That's not Spiritism. It's spiritualism. Even though they confuse because it's just something that people say. It's the same thing that we keep saying theory when we actually mean hypothesis, because theory is something that has been proved, and a hypothesis is something that is yet to be proven. So it's just some colloquial. So Spiritism, it's a term that was created by Kardec. He created that term. So it could not all these religions that came from Africa. They came like they're hundreds of years old, much older than Spiritism. But yeah, so this is the distinction that I want to know. Yeah, for sure, we'll see different flavors, and who knows how we're going to do Spiritism in 300 years from now. But one thing it doesn't change is the facts. We're still going to be talking about reincarnation. We're still going to be talking about spiritual life. We're still going to be talking about immortality of the soul and consolation and moralization of the human being.
Can we say Umbanda and Spiritism are both spiritual?
They are spiritualists. So it's, yeah, of course. So what is truth everywhere. So if you go to a Umbanda meeting, there will be mediums. I went several times. There will be mediums. There will be spirits there. The methodology is different. Yeah, there are more symbolisms and there are more rituals based on very old religions. You can tell them right. You can tell right away when you go there. But if you need to receive a message, if you need to receive consolation, you're going to receive there or here.
Yeah, and one thing, like spiritualism is any idea that believes in spirit. Yes. Spiritism is one of many.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One thing that I don't understand is like, for example, in Umbanda Center is so easy for actually have some kind of communication with spirits. In Spiritism, like try to avoid any kind of show or like turning into something that it shouldn't be. It's so hard to actually have any contact with spirits in the Spiritism Center, right?
It's not. It's we have this room here, but in Spiritism, since it comes from this method, precise method, we believe in doing things with discipline. So the first thing is that you don't leave the doors open of your house for everybody. You don't, and that's the same thing for mediumship. If you see in Umbanda, or the experience that I have, the mediums they drink, they smoke, and it's amazing that they kind of turn and turn and turn, and they spin. They don't get dizzy, they don't throw up, they spin, and then they laugh. It's like a party, and then you are taking to one of them to talk to them, but they are partying. What the spirits that we try to bring to communicate with are those that are doing some sort of work, so that they participate on a methodical work for some purpose. So you can't, they will not come to party because they are very busy. It seems that is like they're businessmen, but they they have a goal to reach. Um, and those are very serious. Sometimes they use the spiritist, the mediumship group to help a whole family close by where there is a teenager thinking doing an abortion, or there's someone with depression that are having suicidal thoughts. So they plan in how they're going to help that family, and they execute that plan. So with this type of spirits, you need to create a certain type of atmosphere for them to come to you. So the first thing that we do, we create a spiritist group, sorry, a medium or a study group. It has to be a study group. And then we have a group of people that are going to study together. Why? Because we need to connect to each other. We need to like each other. It has to be a group. Yeah, harmony, exactly. So that takes time. And then we take one of these books and you open and you read one paragraph. Okay, let's discuss. And it has 600 pages, and you're only going to start communicating with spirits after you finish the book. So then it takes time. It takes time. But and that's the part that when I say that to people, that I don't want to participate anymore. It's too boring. Okay, then it's not for you. And it's not for you. But it takes all this time because we need to learn. We need that. My wife, she has a very strong mediumship, and she was afraid of it for most part of her life. What she saw, what she heard, and she could not control. And when she started attending spiritist centers, she learned to control it through study, through the exercises, and now she lives well. So it's a mental health thing. She will not be able to do that anywhere else without this procedure, this method. And that's what we try to do in spiritism. It has to go through a method. So you cannot just get in, okay, I want to talk to spirits. If you want to, you will. Even if you do in your house, you can. There's that cup game that people, or Ouija boards. You can, but maybe there'll be a time where you say, okay, I don't want to play anymore. and the spirit will say, I don't care if you don't want it anymore. I will stay with you. That's what we try to avoid when we follow our own methodology. So yeah, so it's like I want to work with quantum mechanics. Okay, you need to learn physics. You need to learn mechanics 1, mechanics 2, mechanics 3. Otherwise, you're not going to understand that. So you have to be patient, because there is a body of knowledge. There is certain things that we learn how to do. Even though you look there, everybody just sitting down in silence. What are they doing? They're not doing anything. They are with their minds. With their minds. Yes.
Can I just add a little on that topic? I think one thing that we perhaps forget to say is anyone can join the communistic group, right? Anyone here can join the communistic group. There are some things that we need to do. Participate on the studies. We have our Wednesday studies. I think the first thing, if you want to join us, come on the Wednesday, start studying with us, start participating in all other lectures and jobs that we have at the house. And if you do that, that's a step for you to join the Thursday study and perhaps one day join the communistic group. So it's not that it is a forbidden group or they're just special people, because they are not. They're regular people, like people that you see when you come here. It's just that the people that are there, they went to a piece of study, they're to a piece of whatever you want to call it, but they are part of all the daily basis of the house. And correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're
No,
right.
that's it. And what it is, what you brought, it actually is participating on the house. First of all, it's going to be what Rafael said. It's harmonizing it's not only the team, the medium group, but with the house. You have to be in harmony with the house. You have to really participate. You cannot just, oh, I'm just part of the medium-ish group, but I don't come to the lectures. I don't study or anything, right? Also during that period where you're doing the courses, the Thursday course, then when you show that you have discipline or not. And discipline is everything. Is I am studying, I'm coming every week, I'm on time all the time. Because that's all discipline. Because if you don't have one of this, then you're not ready for a mediumistic group, right? So there is a preparation period that it's necessary. And going to when you think that like, oh, in Umbanda it's easier to go. I have a very close friend in Brazil who was born in a spiritist house. Parents are mediums, she's medium. Actually, no, she was never really studied spiritism her whole life. And then eventually she went to Umbanda, and Umbanda, her mediumship like flourished right away, right? And she went to Umbanda, and she's on the says so that the intentions of the group is completely different. For example, in a serious spiritist house, the mediumship group is to bring consolation to spirits who are in suffering in the spiritual plan. They come, we don't evoke them. It's the spiritual plan, how you said it, prepare this whole preparation of the space. Prepare who needs to come and talk, because we need to console those spirits and help them to ease their pain. And she even says in Umbanda, there's nothing, we don't talk to them, there's no consolation, there's no nothing. But we have the talk or something, whatever it is. And sometimes it's even used for personal stuff, the people that are participating there. Oh, I want to talk with someone, which you don't do this in here, right? Intentions are completely different. And if the spirit needs to be helped, it's going to be completely done in the spiritual plan, right? So intentions are different. And because the intentions are different, they work in a different way. But in a serious spiritist house, the mediumship group, it is, and this is Kardec that brings to us, this is Andrea brings to us, and it's Chico brought to us, right? Discipline, discipline, discipline. It has to have certain discipline because the intention of the group on a spiritist house is completely different than the intention of the group on the Umbanda.
Okay, guys. So sorry to interrupt, but we are passing way our time. So in the intent of discipline, that's finished today, and then we can continue our conversations.
All right. I'd like to thank everybody who was with us here over the internet today, and hoping to see you all here next week. Okay. Thank you.